Yasmin not going to be here. Okay. Welcome back. Yeah, I hope you had some good lunch. We're able to relax a little bit. So we're going to take some time this afternoon and go over the syllabus and things that we didn't do in class this morning. In the class this morning, well, unfortunately, and I'm sorry about this, but we kind of have to put the cart before the horse by having lab in the morning. And the reason is because we just have an awful lot of students, and I need a lot of classes. We're starting to offer the gaming this semester, and because of that, we need the high-end lab for that course. So it's kind of backwards in some ways, and it's in some cases we're going to do before we talk about, and it might be a little awkward. I hope it's not too bad though. Okay, so if you have your syllabus, let's go over this thing little by little about what we're going to do. And if you take a look at my office, it's now 349 in Brazos Hall. I moved Wednesday. So if you would change that. My contact information is all the same. It's been that way forever. The course website has got an awful lot of stuff on it for you. And you go to our site, digital media site, program and courses, explore courses, and then find 4373. All right, now 4373 has a tremendous amount of stuff on it. And I have not put this in Blackboard. Okay, so many of the things that you will be using on a regular basis are not in Blackboard. In virtually all cases, I've linked them or mentioned them in my teaching notes. So if you are on Blackboard and you go to week 1, and you're familiar with this before, I think. You go to session 1, and that's what I'm going to cover. That's kind of the outline of what I'm going to talk about. So you have all that available to you, but the handouts themselves are on our web server, okay? So be aware of that. And the address for that is on the right here, on Digital Media Program Courses, course 4373, okay? Also, we moved the lecture from 103, where it was going to be, into 305 here, and we did that because Yasmin is required to be in religious services on Friday afternoon. And so I'm going to record this for her, and actually it makes this a good opportunity for the rest of us if we can make a kind of a selection of these or a file of these things. Then if I have to be out of town or something, we can whittle on somehow. All right, you know when the labs are and everything. I'm here pretty much all the time. I have class all day on Tuesday, as some of you know. I'm hearing Phil Snyder talk in the other lab. Is there a way to turn that off? I don't know if you can. Okay. I have class all day Tuesdays, and of course with you all day Fridays. Other than that, I'm generally here in the afternoons, and on Wednesday I'll be here most of the time. All right. So if you need me for any particular reason, make sure you just let me know. My office hours are real early in the morning. Don't know what time you all get here, but if you need to talk to me, I'm always in my office by 7-ish. So please try to do that. Okay. Now the course goals and objectives are on page 2, and this is pretty specific. The stuff that we're going to do. I'm going to have to go tell them to stop this. All right. I can't handle this. Just hold on a minute.
Okay, who has gotten the book so far?
I talked to the people at the bookstore. They're gonna mail them to me.
Oh, okay. For this first assignment, you can use the one that's the lab materials. So just go onto the server.
sorry, I love your voice still, but I don't hear my voice.
I'm sorry.
You did this one, I hear your own voice.
Right now?
Yeah, so did you see this one?
There you go. I don't think you've been recording.
Well, what in the world is that now? All right, that changed. Whatever you did, you just changed here, so that's different now. Okay. All right, so this is a class not about, and it's not so much about how to use color, because using color is a graphic design principle. What this is all about is reproducing color. So if somebody chooses a given color, it's our job to reproduce it. Now, if you happen to pick up that print guidelines document that I put at the back there, you know that it's supposed to be blue and white, right? A blue and white striped sheet. I've called it that 1,000 times. I decided to make a few extra copies today, and we're sending Wally back, so it's not it's not even connected. So I sent it to one of the machines on the second floor, Marvin. And if you ever heard the story, I hate Marvin the Martian, and so that machine is named Marvin the Martian. And anyway, that's what it did. It made pink instead of blue. So we're talking about a lot of issues with regards to reproduction. Anyway, so we're not talking about design with color. Design with color is a whole different ball game, and it's something that I know I covered with my 2353 class. And I'm sure Gene, if anybody had Gene, I'm sure you had that color lecture, and it's a lot of good stuff about it. You know, using color for various and sundry ethnic groups and various psychological profiles, etc. It's very cool stuff, but that's not what this class is about. This class is about reproducing color, right? So we're going to be dealing with color theory and its application to color reproduction. And as I alluded to this morning, what we're taught in kindergarten about color is all wrong. In fact, if I were to ask you what the primary colors are, you would probably say yellow, red, and blue, wouldn't you? But they're not. I mean, red is not a print primary color. Cyan is. Magenta is, right? Blue is not a primary color. And yellow is a primary color of printing, but not of monitors. And so it's all wrong. The whole Play-Doh thing, the finger paints, all that kind of stuff is wrong. And it takes a little bit of time to understand how color actually works so that you can deal with it in color reproduction. Now, number 2 on the screen up there, you'll see is the impact and importance of lighting. We did that today. Now, I really hope that you never forget what you saw this morning, because it really should embed in your mind the importance of setting things properly. All right, then third, we're going to be talking about capturing faithful reproductions. Faithful means that you're trying to reproduce as close as possible to the original. And we're going to be doing that. You remember in 3351, you took an IT8 and you scanned it, and from that we did a profile. Well, Ken and I are going to have you set up a profile for a digital camera too. We're going to take the same digital camera we were playing with today, and in the dark room there is a copy camera stand, and it has an arm to hold the camera, and you can put something small like a keychain or whatever. By the way, did you get your wallet back?
Yeah.
That's good. You get your
Yeah.
All right. Good. We're going to set that up to photograph an item. Probably we'll also photograph the Graytag Macbeth color checker. And the idea is if a color is a certain color in the original, you want to capture that color, not some other color. All right? That is a big job. It's a very complex job, and we're going to be working on that. Now, there's a new term that's here. It's called color spaces. If you might have noticed, I pointed it out. If this is the classroom over there, up on the wall, let's see if I'm over on that side, there's these big posters showing like a horseshoe, All right, we're going to talk a lot about that. It's called the color space. And it goes back to this CIE I was telling you about this morning, the Commission Internationale de Éclairage. And we're going to learn about the color space and how it interacts with your vision and how the different devices reproduce different portions of the color space. So you can see that color spaces are weird names like LAB. RGB, you should be familiar with RGB, and CMYK too as well. But what about HSB, spot, and hexadecimal? Maybe you know something about hexadecimal, especially if you're involved with web design, because hexadecimal is how you define color for websites. We're going to measure color. One of the most important axioms of technology is if you can't measure it, you cannot control it. All right, and so we have to be able to measure color. So we are not talking about, is this royal blue, or is this green, or is it bile puke green, or whatever, right? Is it chartreuse? I don't know what the hell color chartreuse is, but I can tell you what the numbers are. I can measure it. So I'm not so much worried about words that define colors, but numbers, math, different descriptive systems that describe color. Because if I can measure it, then I can control it, and that's what we want to do. This class is production control, isn't it? It means you're in charge. The color's not in charge. You are. And that's what we have to get to. All right, so we're going to be using spectrophotometers. When you were in 3351, I showed it to you. You never used it. Colorimeters. Colorimeter is what you put in front of your computer monitor to characterize and calibrate it. All right, it's called a colorimeter. And of course, you're going to be using a densitometer. You've all used that in the press class in one way or the other. And of course, you'll be doing some printing in this class as well, so you'll be using the densitometer. Color management systems. I'm just going to leave it at that at this point. Color management systems is a big thing. I will tell you that in 3051, I talked to you about calibrate, characterize, and convert, right? The 3 C's. And so we'll be building upon that. So that what we'll do is we'll take the digital press in 110, the Genie J75 Xerox machine, and we will calibrate it. So Ken, Harold, and I are going to walk you through the actual calibration of that device so that it prints what it's supposed to do. And then we will print some targets and characterize it. Well, you know, like we said, that calibration is doing what it's supposed to do, but characterization is what unique features of whatever it's doing. And then we will use all of that in Photoshop and other ways to create a profile so that we send a file that will actually print well. So if you think about it, like I'm saying, the Marvin prints terribly, but by the time this class is over, you will be able to print beautiful stuff on Marvin because we will calibrate it, characterize it, and then convert according to that characterization. And that's all color management systems. All right, so in order to get to color management systems, as you see, you've got to do calibration and characterization, blah, blah, blah. All right, then we'll talk about how colors, color originals are separated to process color. See, in the world, contrary to what kindergarten teacher taught you, the colors are red, green, and blue. There's no yellow involved. All right, red, green, and blue. Your monitor's using red, green, and blue. Your eyes use red, green, and blue. Your camera uses red, green, and blue. But when you want to reproduce those things, you have to use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And to change from one system to another, I know you've seen convert to profile or image color mode, whatever. You've seen that, right? But the actual process of how color that is green turns into CMYK values is quite a convoluted and amazing thing. We've looked at a little bit of the effects of paper and ink this morning. I showed you the example of that. We're going to use color editing in Photoshop. We're going to produce pages in color and in design. You're going to trap, which you don't know yet, but we will be doing next week. And we'll talk about delivering files, color proofing, and then the big thing is towards the top of page 3, and that is swap, snap, grackle first, and G7. All right, so there's a bunch of different acronyms that we'll be doing, And based upon all of this stuff, you will be able to go out there and control color. Okay? Now when you look at the page 3, you'll see that there's also your textbooks that will be for this class. And I'd like to show you these things. Now, first of all, you know the Handbook of Print Media, you just download. You should already have that from a previous class. It's on, not in Blackboard, but it's on our server. And I promised that Helmut Kippen, who is the author of the book, that I would let you, only you have it. So I can't put it out, on the server, on the outside web server or anything, so I have to hide it. So we'll need that. And for the most part, all I use that for is pictures. And so there will be times where I'll be bringing up those files on the screen so that you can look at illustrations and examples of things. Now, the next thing is the CMYK book. Now, I want to show this to you. And you can see in the syllabus that there is a set of instructions for getting this book. This is not a brand new thing. It's been around for a while. And a guy here in Houston actually created this. And his name is Gary Nichols. Now, Gary had asked me about this, and what he had given me in terms of words was so bad, so poorly written, that I edited it for him. And for that reason, he said for all times, he will give you a really cheap price on it. All right, so my students forever and ever get this cheap as compared to buying it in the open market. You can look, you might try Amazon to see if you can find it or whatever. But if you call Gary, he should give you a good price. In the syllabus, it gives you exact words for words what I asked him about, So he'll give it to you. All right, so it's a lot of money, but I want to show you this. First of all, Gary wrote it for graphic designers, okay? Because graphic designers need to have an understanding of how to prepare files so that they output properly. All right, the second thing is that it was printed here in Houston by Tim Tully, who owns Southwest Precision Printers, which is the largest printing company in Houston. Tim is a member of our advisory board, and he won many awards for the printing of this book. All right, all the way to the national, they call them the Bennies, after Ben Franklin. So he won Bennies, he won the local Graphic Excellence Awards. Scotty won, actually, a Graphic Excellence Award, didn't you? Yeah, you did. But Tim won Best of Show for this book. So you might remember, some of you went to that show last year, and Best of Show for the printing of this book. So it's really, really good printing. And as you go through it, there's a whole bunch of really concise synopses of technology and theory of color that go through this. And it doesn't take an awful lot of space. And what I like most about it is he gives you the original photograph. This is actually a photographic print. It's not a inkjet. And then you can scan with it, and he shows you all sorts of things that go wrong with your scanning and gives you examples of what happens. That's what I really like. I like to see the image and what goes on with it, what happens to it as a result. Then, see the same image used over and over and over again, and with different captions, different descriptions of what happens. There's all kinds of Photoshop screens, and how you would set this, that, and the other thing. But this, what's right in here, in the middle, this is worth its weight in gold. Right? Now, I was telling my friend that I was mentioning this morning that the best way to pick a color for something that's going to be done in screen printing is to give a number, okay? Not some file. Because they don't print in CMYK with screen printing on big banners. They print with ink. Right? And so here, what are on all these pages is percentages. So at this point, all the yellow is all blank. There's no yellow in any of these. And then it has 10% magenta, no cyan, etc. So it shows you what the percentages of CMYK look like. Now, there are several different places that you can get tables like this, but none of them are as accurate. Now, what I think is really cool is every book that he had produced, they actually put the density number of each color on the front page. so you know that the quality control was very tight. And that's what this part is. It shows you the actual percentages of what different colors will look like on good stuff. So it's a very valuable thing. Then, the most important thing comes in here with skin tones. Again, there is nothing that you can do to be worse than screwing up somebody's skin tone, right? And what they do is he has examples of different flesh tones, all right? And this is the way we human beings are. We have different colors, and that's okay. We want to have different colors because that's the way we are. But the thing is that if you are somebody who is a weirdo like me, I don't want to be all red, okay? And someone who has dark complexion doesn't want to be blue. And it happens all the time because of settings that are wrong. So what he's done here is he gives these, and of course it's always women, all right, because of the beard. All right? I don't want to be sexist, right? So anyway, always women, and you can see the color of the flesh tones, and what he does then is he gives you CMYK numbers as targets. So you have an idea of what the numbers ought to be. And then you see here what goes wrong. Okay, so digital cameras are increasing to the point where scanners are almost obsolete. All right, they're almost obsolete. You still might want to have a scanner around, but I tell you, I cannot understand a photographer who would use a film-based camera anymore. In fact, there was a student who wanted to transfer from another school, and he took the intro filmmaking or video class that we have, 3354. He took it at UT Austin, and the content was pretty amazing, pretty similar in the fact that they did storytelling and making of the what do they call those things? The storyboards, all that. They shot, they edited, used Premiere, blah blah blah. So I gave him credit for 3354. But when he showed me the syllabus, I was floored. Their first assignment had to be shot on black and white film. Like, what? Why would you do that? You know, they only make black and white film in Brazil, I think it is. There's only one place on the planet that's made even. Why would you do anything? So if you think about it, if film is becoming obsolete, or is obsolete, then capturing a film image is really an anachronism. And so the scanners, while they're very important to the history of what we do and the predecessors, if you think about it, a digital camera and a desktop scanner are the exact same thing. They're the same thing. What's the difference? Okay, if you're using a digital camera, the object is three-dimensional out there, isn't it? But on a desktop scanner, it's a two-dimensional thing. Yeah? If you're talking about a digital camera, then you've got to be real careful in making sure that it's straight. Okay? If you are using a desktop scanner, you can square it to the bed of the scanner and make sure it's straight, can't you? All right? So, one last thing I just got to tell you. I've mentioned we have this house out in the hill country, and they came to tell us how to use the septic tank. And let me tell you, if you're a city boy or girl, you don't know nothing about flushing. You know nothing about flushing. Nothing. The list of things you cannot put into a septic tank is so long that it's unbelievable. So I needed to share this with everybody else in the family, because people who are going to go out there need to know that they can't push certain things in the disposal. Like you can't put coffee. You can't put coffee in the disposal because it doesn't break down. On and on. So there's this page. And so my wife says, we need to scan it. And so no, what did I do? I took my camera, took a picture of it, and emailed it to them. What did you guys do in class on Tuesday or Thursday? You saw all the names of the pictures, right? It's a really, really good thing for you to think about using the digital camera as a scanner. Okay? Very cool. I saw somewhere, but I haven't played with it yet. There's an app for your phone. Have you seen that? I've seen it mentioned in Facebook. I'm going to have to get that, but it's supposed to be a phone application where you can take old pictures and click on it, and what it does, from what I understand, is it will correct the angles. So in other words, if I take a picture of this and, you know, I don't have exactly the right angle, then it's going to be crooked, isn't it? And what this app is supposed to do is straighten it all out. And supposedly you can take old pictures and basically use your camera scan. I like the idea a lot. Okay, yeah.
So whenever you're using a DSLR as a scanner, can you not just use the skew feature in Photoshop, or does that mess with the quality of the image a little bit too much if it's crooked or perspective's a little bit off?
My point is I wanted to capture it as good as I could. And I was careful to do that. And I didn't have to change anything. And when I brought it up on the screen, vertical and horizontal were perfect. So I did a good job. I did a good job. But yeah, you could use some of those tools in Photoshop if you needed to. And I think that's kind of what's automatic in this app. I really have to get that out and play with it. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. All right, up here we have, look for the quality of the image. Okay, now do you know how to check a quality image in a digital camera? If you're going to buy a digital camera, do you know how to check for the quality of the image? Yes or no? No? All right, again, I wish I had Photoshop running on this computer, but if you take an image like, you know, those little patches that we shot this morning, shoot an image like that, shoot an ITA, whatever. Blow it up on the screen until you can see each pixel. Within that color patch, within each color patch, the pixels should all be the same color. Okay? If there are some that are completely extraneous, then that's noise. Okay? Watch out for noise. Now, there have been a number of students who have done their senior thesis on noise and other quality control factors in cameras, in digital cameras. And I think it's pretty interesting that many of the cameras that we've tested over the years have lots of noise. So you understand what I'm saying? If you got this color wall, you got the whole wall the same color, you take a picture of it, all the pictures should have the same value, right? And if it comes out with one that's green instead of that color, that's noise, right? And that happens a lot, and I've seen it happen in the first digital camera I bought my wife was a cheapie, and it was terrible. It had just random pixels everywhere. All right, so that's the noise. All right, so that's one thing you want to check in a camera. And the number of pixels. All right, my point to you is, depending upon what you need for your production process, you may need to have more pixels or less pixels. In the case of this particular thing that I did, I was real happy to have a 20 megapixel camera because it was going to be a 20 by 24 print. My goal is to have them printed by one of those companies on canvas so that it actually looks like the original. So that's why I wanted to have a bigger view. Good. All right. So now the next thing we'll talk about in getting images into a camera is video capture. It used to be a terrible thing because video was captured on VHS or some sort of a tape, and the images were interlaced. Everybody know what interlaced means, right? And the video images were interlaced, which means the first, third, fifth were the same image, and then the second, fourth, sixth was the previous image. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the image went back and forth like this. Right? And it was, what, help me, 400 and some pixels across? Help me. 458, I want to say. Now images are 1080p, right? Which is 1080 by 1920. I'm thinking that they were something like 500 or 450 some pixels wide.
480.
480. Did you know? So this image was 480 pixels across. You do the math with the Nyquist theorem. You're down to 1 1/4 image. Yeah. On the other hand, if you have a current 1080p image, what's the P mean? Pixels. You ever heard of 1080i?
Yeah, where's that?
That's interlaced. All right, so if you have a 1080p image, that's almost as good as you could make with a digital camera. What's the difference between taking a digital image, a digital camera image, of a scene as compared to taking a frame from a video of the same scene. Can you tell me what the difference would be? In fact, you can do video on a DSLR now, right? So if I were to capture a frame, fine, okay, I capture a frame, one photograph, or if I started running a photographing or a video and captured one frame, what's the difference? Come on, guys, you should know this. What's the difference? Shutter speed. Right? If I'm doing a video image, then it's a 30th of a second, isn't it? Am I right?
Yeah.
Or
Well, that's
29th
like
or
that.
something like that.
That's the film standard. Like Hollywood movies, they film like 30 frames per second.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm saying 30 frames a second. Now, which means that's relatively closed aperture because that's a long exposure time. Do you follow what I'm saying, guys? It's a long exposure time compared with thousands of a second, isn't it? And if I am taking a photograph, then the shutter speed is a thousandth of a second or 500th of a second. And how much can you move, right? So the only downside today, in my mind, of a video image capture, a frame from video being captured, is you might have some blur in it. Because if I do this, and you capture it, every frame is going to have some blur in it, isn't it? Whereas if I take a still photo, then it's so fast that there won't be any blur. Yeah? Okay. I think that's another really cool thing to do today. So if you take a look at the math I did there, video images do not have sufficient pixels to make images much more than 6 inches or so wide. Now let me ask you, in print, how often do you need images bigger than that? You're printing a print production job of a magazine or a newspaper or a catalog or whatever, that's plenty of data. 6.4 inches, that's almost as wide as a sheet of paper. It's from here to about here. That's a pretty good sized image, right? Go to 4K. Now you're up to 13 inches, right? It makes a lot of sense to capture frames from video now. It didn't used to. I'll tell you what though, there are so many videos being shot with cell phones nowadays that even police departments are able to ask people for their videos and extract frames to figure out what exactly happened during altercations or whatever. I think it's pretty interesting. I mentioned to you the idea of interlacing, and interlacing 1080i means that the other pixels, it goes like this, back and forth, right? So you might have some squigglies. So the 1080p is better. All right, so preparing to scan or preparing to capture an image. Now remember, for all practical purposes, you are dealing, when you're scanning or using a digital camera, it's the same thing. So to prepare to scan, you need to know the end use of the image. Okay, what are you going to use it for? And you need to scan for the highest resolution you think that you'll ever need. Is it going to be on screen? What size monitor? Or is it going to be multi-purpose for responsive design or whatever? Video. Is it going to be used on digital printing devices, analog printing devices? We went over a bunch of this stuff before in 3351. Is the color content of the image there? If so, you need to scan in color. If it's a grayscale or black and white image, just scan in grayscale. But my point to you, and I made this in the other class, if you have a color image captured in color, because you never know when you might need the color. All right, scaling, it's better to scale optically. So here's the deal, guys. If I am capturing a picture of him, and I have my camera here, and take a picture of him, he's this big. Yeah? If I pinch in on my cell phone, then I'm digitally enlarging, right? Which means I'm making him pixelized. So it's better to optically make the image bigger. And how do I do that? I come up here. Now my wife would shoot a picture of you two from here, and then wonder why she can't see you. All right? Now, how would I take a picture? I'd go over there and get closer. You see, that's optical, right? Now, if you have a DSLR like Ken has got going over there, how do you enlarge? Use the lens. Use the lens. And I think that I'm going to have to buy a DSLR. I've held off on this time, but there's turkeys and all kinds of stuff in my jackrabbits, all sorts of things in my yard, and I want to be able to see them instead of what I just showed you, right? So I might have to get a long lens. That's optical, right? Don't enlarge with digital scaling. Cropping. You can crop in scanning. Only do that if the images are completely useless. All right, screening. Let's just go over this. You've had this before. Let's hit it quickly. LPI. All right, so when you're screening halftones, you have to deal with LPI. And we know, we've talked about this before. If you have forgotten about it, go back and you look in your notes for 3051. Aesthetics. The higher LPI you use, the better the aesthetics are. The clearer, cleaner the image is. End use requirements. If you're going to be building a billboard that's along the side of the road, you can get along with a 5 LPI screen. Maybe 3. All right? Dots this big. All right? Who cares? You're seeing it from 200 feet away. All right? But if you're going to be doing an arch book that people are going to look at this big, you better be at 300 to 600 LPI screen. All right, just so that the resolution is good there. I gave you a copy of the guidelines, the printing industry guidelines chart, the blue and white striped sheet. So that gives you an idea of the screening process requirements for various and sundry processes. The substrate. All right, the smoother the substrate, the higher the LPI, the better the resolution all works together, right? The resolution of the output device, the marking engine, rule of 16s. You remember that? Take the output device of the machine, divide by 16, and it tells you what the maximum LPI that machine is. So in the case of Genie, Genie is, I want to say, 1800, isn't it, Ken? What's the res of Genie?
Genie, 1200.
1200?
Yeah.
Okay, so you take 1200 divided by 16, that's the maximum LPI, right? The Eco plate setter is 2400, so you take 2400 divided by 16, and that's the maximum LPI it'll do. You know that what's going to happen, you'll get banding. We talked about that in another class. If you tell a device to give you more LPI than it can do mathematically, the result will be unsightly banding. Here is the formula. We've done this before. What's the number of grays? And so just take a look at that in the notes and kind of refresh your mind. The best LPI is the one that's for one area of these variables is not the best for another variable. So for example, the customer may want real high resolution, but may be printing it on newsprint, which is low resolution. All right? So you can't always meet all the requirements. You can meet all of the needs some of the time, and some of the needs all of the time, but you can't meet all of them all. Well, you know what I'm saying, right? I think I got that all screwed up as I said it. But the point is that if the customer wants a 300-line screen, and the end-use requirements only require a 3-line screen, well, the 3 wins. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't have to have, for a billboard, you don't have to have high resolution. If you just think about it, if you had a 300 ppi image for a billboard that's 40 feet wide, do you know how many terabytes that image would be? Like, why? You don't need it for anything. Okay? All right, moire. We talked about moire. I showed you the pattern that happens when you put screens on top of each other. It's going to be a big problem in color. And I have a piece of trash that I picked up out of a waste pile many years ago. And you can see, here's a good side, right? And this was for setting up the press. It was a waste sheet. And see how it printed? See the moire in there? Isn't that cool? That's just because there was 2 different images printed on top of each other, because this sheet of paper was being used as a setup sheet. All right, look at it. It's all over that image. Isn't that cool? All right, so moire is a thing that happens when images are superimposed. And if you're given an image that has already been printed, and they say scan this to do it again, you're going to end up with moire. Most software in scanners today will have an anti-moire algorithm to try to get rid of it. You know all this other stuff about the moire. Sharpening causes, and in Photoshop causes moire too. FM stochastic screening prevents it. If you have an image that's got some moire in it, use the algorithm in the software. You can blur the image in Photoshop, and it blurs the the moire, but if the image is blurred, then the whole image is blurred. All right. You can add noise in Photoshop. And then the other thing that really works well is if you have an image that is coming up with moire, remember that 30 degrees changes it, right? So you can turn the image on the bed of the scanner. And by doing that, sometimes you can remove the moire. Okay, resolution. Remember the Nyquist theorem, which is the quality control factor 2 times the LPI times magnification. All right, we're going to have to use that over and over and over in class. So you have to have enough data for your image, but not too much. All right, so that's why I made a big deal of telling you this morning to scale in Photoshop. Don't put an image in InDesign and scale it. You'll get a 0 on it, on the project. All right, you can't do that. All right, you have to do this scaling inside Photoshop. Remember, it's always okay to downsample images. You can always make them smaller, but once it's small, you can't make it legitimately bigger again. So that's why if you have a full-size image, you need to make it smaller. Make the smaller one a copy. Don't use the original. Okay. Okay. So I kind of went over very quickly some things that we covered more in depth in 3351. The new stuff I added today was about the drum scanner. And I hope you kind of get an idea of how cool your industry is, that it has been kind of morphing and shaping and everything for so many years. Do you have any questions about today's stuff? Okay. Were you able to finish up? I had to run and get Monica something. It was right before the end of class. But were you able to finish up today? Y'all print it to Jeannie? Do they have access to it directly, or do they have to log in?
Yes, they print directly. No, not directly, but they print from the computer
To the RIB.
Yeah, to the RIB.
And then is Harold having to unlock it?
No, I am.
Okay. So it's going to be a couple more steps, but the quality of what that machine will do is so nice that
Yes.
and there's no question about it. Okay. With that, yeah, question.
I had a question about the book. So you're saying that if we collect $100 cash, and who do we give that to?
His number's there.
Oh, that's his number? Okay. Oh, okay. I see the quotations. Okay.
Yeah. So he wrote me that, and I just put it in there. You might find it cheaper online though.
Yeah.
The only question is to me, is this a $100 book? This stuff makes it worth $100, right? To me, especially this, because you'll pay $100 for this. Okay. So anyway, if you find online that may not have all this stuff in it, that's the one thing I'm saying. But give Gary. I haven't talked to Gary in a couple of years. I hope he's okay. He was getting on in age last time I talked to him. I still hope he's okay. He's a good, very sharp man. Okay, good. All right. Enjoy. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you back here. Most of you on Tuesday, I guess.
And I looked online and it's in all $311,